In the heart of ancient Germania, a storm was brewing, a storm that would shake the mighty Roman Empire to its very core. This is not just a story of rebellion. It's the tale of a man who was raised by Rome, trained by Rome, and then turned against it with a fury that would echo through history. This is the story of Arminius, the rebel who defied an empire and then vanished. Imagine this. You're a young boy, a prince of the Cherusci tribe. Your people have been subjugated by the most powerful military force the world has ever known. To ensure your tribe's loyalty, you and your brother are taken as hostages to Rome. You're not thrown in a dungeon, though. No, you're given the best education, the finest military training. You learn Roman tactics, Roman language, Roman culture. You even earn Roman citizenship and a prestigious rank in the army. You become one of them. This was the life of the young man the Romans called Arminius. For years, Arminius served Rome faithfully. He fought in its legions, commanded its auxiliary troops, and proved himself a capable and loyal officer. He saw firsthand the discipline, the engineering, and the sheer brute force that had conquered most of the known world. He was the perfect example of Rome's policy of assimilation, turning the sons of conquered chieftains into loyal Roman commanders. But beneath the polished armor of a Roman knight, the heart of a Germanic warrior still beat, and it was a heart filled with a burning desire for freedom. Around the year 7 AD, Arminius returned to his homeland in Germania, accompanying the Roman governor Publius Quinctilius Varus. Varus was an administrator, not a general. He was arrogant, underestimated the Germanic peoples, and sought to impose Roman laws and taxes with a heavy hand. He saw Arminius, his trusted Germanic aide, as the perfect tool to pacify the region. What he didn't see was the betrayal brewing right under his nose. While smiling and advising Varus, Arminius was secretly forging a conspiracy. He used his knowledge of Roman military procedure and his influence among the Germanic tribes to unite them in a way no one thought possible. He spoke to the chieftains, reminding them of their shared heritage, their warrior traditions, and the creeping threat of Roman domination that sought to erase their very identity. It was a monumental task. The tribes were fiercely independent and often fought amongst themselves. But the charisma and conviction of Arminius were powerful. He convinced them to lay a trap. The plan was brilliant in its simplicity and terrifying in its execution. In the autumn of 9 AD, Arminius fed Varus false intelligence. He told him of a minor uprising in a remote area, urging the governor to march his legions off the main roads and into the dense, marshy wilderness of the Teutoburg forest to quell it. Varus, trusting his loyal aide completely, took the bait. He marched 3 of Rome's finest legions, the 17th, 18th, and 19th, along with thousands of support staff and families, into the dark, winding paths of the forest. It was a death trap. The terrain was a weapon in itself. The narrow path stretched for miles, turning the disciplined Roman column into a long, vulnerable snake. Heavy autumn rains turned the ground into a muddy quagmire, slowing their progress to a crawl. And then the signal was given. From all sides, from behind trees and earthen ramparts they had secretly built, thousands of Germanic warriors descended upon the unsuspecting Romans. What followed was not a battle, it was a 3-day massacre. The Romans, masters of open-field warfare, were helpless. Their formations were broken, their shields were useless against the rain of spears from above, and their heavy armor only served to drag them deeper into the mud. Arminius, using the very tactics he had learned from his captors, coordinated the attacks perfectly, giving the trapped legions no quarter, no chance to regroup, no hope of escape. Varus, seeing his legions annihilated and his career and life in ruins, fell on his own sword, a final act of a disgraced Roman commander. In just 3 days, nearly 20,000 Roman soldiers and personnel were wiped out. It was one of the most catastrophic defeats in Roman history. When the news reached Rome, the city was thrown into a panic. The Emperor Augustus, a man who had presided over decades of expansion and glory, was said to have wandered his palace for months, banging his head against the walls and crying out, "Quinctilius Varus, give me back my legions." The numbers of the three lost legions, 17, 18, and 19, were never used again. The Teutoburg forest became a symbol of Roman fear, a haunted frontier they would never truly conquer. Arminius, once a Roman officer, was now a hero to his people. He had done the impossible. He had not just defeated Rome, he had humiliated it. He became a symbol of Germanic freedom and resistance. But his fight was far from over. Rome, predictably, wanted revenge. The celebrated General Germanicus, nephew of the new Emperor Tiberius, was sent to Germania with a massive army to punish Arminius and recover the lost legionary eagles, the sacred standards of the Roman army. What followed were years of brutal, back-and-forth warfare. Germanicus and Arminius were worthy adversaries. Germanicus managed to inflict several defeats on the tribes and even captured Arminius's pregnant wife, Thusnelda. He recovered 2 of the 3 lost eagles, but he could never capture or decisively defeat Arminius. Arminius, using guerrilla tactics and his intimate knowledge of the land, constantly harried and bled the Roman forces. Even when Germanicus claimed victory, his armies would suffer heavy losses on their retreat back to the Rhine. The conflict reached a climax at a battle near a place called the Angravarian Wall. The fighting was intense. Arminius, fighting in the thick of it, was wounded but managed to escape by smearing his face with blood to disguise himself. The Romans claimed a great victory, but ultimately, Emperor Tiberius had seen enough. The cost of subduing Germania was too high, in both men and money. He recalled Germanicus to Rome, declaring the campaign a success, and effectively abandoned the idea of conquering Germania east of the Rhine. The river would become Rome's permanent frontier. Arminius had won. He had saved his people from Roman rule. So, he's the hero, the savior of his people, the uniters of the tribes. His story should end with him ruling a grateful and unified Germanic kingdom for the rest of his days, right? Well, this is where the epic story takes a turn into mystery. The very traits that made Arminius a brilliant wartime leader, his ambition, his cunning, and his desire for centralized power, made him a threat in peacetime. The Germanic chieftains who had followed him against Rome were fiercely protective of their own independence. They had not thrown off the yoke of a Roman emperor just to bow to a Germanic king. They saw Arminius's ambition not as a unifying force, but as tyranny. His old allies began to turn on him. He was accused of trying to make himself king over all the tribes. Civil war erupted among the very people he had fought to free. In the year 21 AD, just 12 years after his legendary victory in the Teutoburg forest, Arminius was assassinated. But not by a Roman agent, not in a great battle, but by his own kinsmen, members of his own family, who feared his growing power. He was only 37 years old. And then silence. The historical records of his final days are shockingly sparse. We know he was assassinated by his own relatives, but the specific details, who struck the final blow, where he was buried, what happened to his legacy immediately after his death, are lost to time. He who had filled the pages of Roman history with so much fear and fury simply vanishes from the record. There's no grand tomb, no known burial site, no monument erected by his people at the time. For centuries, his story was largely forgotten, preserved only in the writings of his Roman enemies. It wasn't until the 19th century, with the rise of German nationalism, that Arminius was rediscovered and reborn as a national hero, a symbol of German unity and strength against foreign invaders. But the man himself remains an enigma. Did his people try to erase his memory because of his kingly ambitions? Or was his story simply lost in the unwritten history of the Germanic tribes? Arminius's life is a powerful reminder that history is often written by the victors, but the stories of those who resist are never truly erased. He was a man caught between two worlds, who used the knowledge of his oppressors to set his people free, only to be consumed by the very independence he fought for. He defied the greatest empire on earth, saved his culture from extinction, and then vanished into the mists of history, leaving behind a legend and a question. What is the true price of freedom? Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the past. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that like button and consider subscribing for more tales of hidden history. Let me know in the comments what you think happened to the legacy of Arminius. Until next time, stay curious.